for the 17 flats, what do you project the GDV at?
3.2 million. We bought that flat for 80,000. Fast forward, that property's doubled in value. It's 160,000. We met at school.
Oh God.
We've been married 22 years now.
Yeah,
We've got adult kids. Yeah, I know she doesn't look old enough to have adult
great.
kids. Yvonne is my life partner.
Working with your spouse, give me some pros and cons.
Okay, I will go for cons first.
And we are back, another brand new episode of the PBK podcast. Now, each and every week, we bring you an amazing special guest. But this week, you're in for a treat. It's a 2-for-1, a bog off, a buy one, get one free. Derek, Yvonne, how you doing?
We're doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Well, I was doing very well, but then we had to discuss your name off camera. And I feel like Yvonne led with a Y.
Yeah.
It's not fair for us dyslexics.
Well, it's okay because I'm also dyslexic, so it's fine. We can work our way around it.
So you're bonding early. Get the host on side. Make sure that Derek gets asked the difficult questions today.
Yes, you're difficult.
I like that.
I'll be handed over those hot
Tactile.
potatoes to you. You
No,
know,
over to you. Well, we actually are going to have a really interesting episode today because the last time we saw each other in person like this was actually the first time you did a consultation with myself.
That's right.
And you've, for context, have been in property in terms of buying your first property 17 years ago, now built up a 7-figure portfolio, and you're moving into now, I would say, like the ascendancy of your property development career with your biggest project to date.
That's right, yeah.
And loads of people are going to be super excited about that. I believe it's at present potentially 17 units in Milton Keynes, scope to even go even bigger.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people see things like this on Instagram. They see, here's the keys to my brand new 10 brand new houses, 15 flats, 2 flats, whatever the case may be. But they don't see the work that goes underneath the iceberg that's visible.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about why you even bought your first property.
Right, let you start.
Yeah. Well, first, actually, let me say thank you for letting us come on board, come on the show.
By the way, sorry, side note to this. People can come on the podcast. Like a lot of the time, like when I'm like, yo, looking for some podcast guests, people message me and be like, one day, bro, I'm going to come on. And I'm like, no, come on now. Like, because whether or not it's a story about the person with a £20 million property portfolio, or it's a story about the person who was £5,000 in debt and has now got themselves out of debt and have their first 2 rent-to-rents and want to tell their story.
Yeah.
The importance is there's value everywhere, and there's so many people at different stages that it's almost a crime not to tell your success and what you've learned from it, because it can help so many different people in different stages of their lives.
Yeah.
So-
And sometimes the journey is more important than the success sometimes.
The journey is incredible. It's fun.
There's no real such thing, I think, when it comes to life as the destination. Because as soon as you get there, you pivot, you move, you change what your priorities are, what your goals are. So you do have to really, really enjoy the journey, I think.
Yeah.
So talk to me. Tell me, first property,
Yeah.
17 years ago, where was it? Why did you buy it?
I would probably put it down to a particular book that I read when I was 16. And that book was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And that book was really just all about the mindset of money and sort of how the rich think differently to everyone else. And that sort of the aim, in order to sort of build generational wealth that you can pass on to your children, you're going to need to buy income producing assets. So we always knew we wanted to get into property. But we didn't always have the means. So we sort of just had to sort of look around what we had and make the most of it. And so, our first step into property ownership was actually alongside my mum. I grew up in a council estate in Wembley, but my mum was sort of clever enough to have bought her place. And we started off, in order to buy us a family home, we bought a place with mum. And then started renting out mum's house, and that's how we started.
We kind of just made a decision to move in together with our extended family, Derek's mum, and be able to release some money to get onto the property ladder.
And I think when you look at like different cross sections of societies, there's definitely a lot of different cultural norms.
Yeah.
And when we see how well some of the, South Asian communities, particularly India and Pakistani, have done, a lot of the time it's comes from a place of working together collectively, buying as siblings, buying as multi-generational, actually staying at home earlier. We look for a longer period of time to allow people to amass savings. And it's like, right, it's your turn first, then your turn, then your turn, rather than, I guess, more of a, I've just got to look good rather than do
Or
good
go
mentality.
individualism all the time. We need to learn to kind of come together, even if it's just a family unit to start with, and work together as a community more.
Yeah.
Definitely. So that was your first, and whereabouts was that? In Wembley?
So that was Wembley. So we moved to Hertfordshire. That's where we bought a house. And yeah, we started renting out that house in Wembley as a 3-bed terrace house. So we were renting out to families. And that done quite well for us. And that was sort of our foray into being landlords, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Were there any experiences in that first landlord experience that kind of took you by surprise? And did you self-manage or did you have an agent?
So yeah, so we self-managed.
Still do.
Still do. 17 years later.
Yeah.
We done that basically because when you're starting off early, growing your business, you need to sort of retain as much funds as you can and reinvest.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's why we're talking self-management. And we did that alongside our full-time jobs as well.
Time jobs, very young children as well. So we were married young, had children young, and kind of trying to do all of it together as we got on, so to say.
Yeah.
And I think that when I look at people, you know, that it could be very easy to have a kind of like, you know, there's other things going on. The kids are the priority. My career is the priority. You know, property is going to come later down the line. But, you know, one of the most common adages in property was when was the best time to buy? And it's always yesterday. And if not yesterday.
I'm laughing. I literally said that to Yvonne this morning.
It's the case. Like, you know, the prices realistically don't get in mass recessions. There might be some little peaks and troughs. But generally speaking, they only go one way. I guess for somebody who's maybe, you know, struggling to sort of save for their deposit or make things work financially, are there any advice that you would have for somebody who's sort of starting out?
That's a good question. I think you just have to go with what positive things you do have. And like we touched on, working together. So working with family, siblings, and using what support you've got around you, really.
Look, work-wise, I think a lot of people now, you know, want to be the CEO. They want to be, you know, they want to sit in the C-suite of their own business. They want director on their business card. You know, you guys collectively remained in employment for a while. Like, how important do you think actually having a full-time vocation has been to you being successful property investors?
I think you needed to fund this the property portfolio that we wanted to build. So it's quite important for you not to give that up too soon. For us, I have been recently able to give up my full-time employment just so that I can tack in a bit more. But you can't lie to yourself. You have to have a steady income coming in order to build this portfolio that you want to. So you have to be willing to kind of just do both at the same time, kind of do 9 to 5 for someone and then kind of 5 to the next day for yourself, so to say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I was just going to come in there and say that, you know, lenders like a steady income. So it definitely helps when you're starting off that you do have that income coming in for them to look at and lend against, and you're able to support yourself, whether your property business does well or not in the beginning stage.
Definitely. Look, and we're going to get on to, like, you know, where you are now with property, but just so people kind of understand the journey, give me like a sort of, you know, shortened timeline of, right, so we went from buying this first property multi-generational with mum and moving out of London to then what were your next investments? What other things you've done up until now?
So after that one, we started looking at, okay, how are we going to do this property thing properly? So that was almost a little bit accidental landlord, but now we want to be proper landlords, and we looked at what we want to do next, and we decided to buy a 1-bed flat in Luton. And this was in 2015. And we bought that flat for, I think it was 80,000.
It was 82.
82, okay, just to be precise.
I remember having to find all the money.
You needed the extra 2.
And I remember, just like you just said, when was the best time to buy property? Yesterday. I remember we dithered a little bit And when we started looking, these properties were 60,000. And I remember at the time cursing my luck, saying, "Oh, we did it too long. It's gone up to 80."
Yeah.
Fast forward to now, 2025, that property's doubled in value. It's 160,000. So it really does show that the best time to buy property was yesterday. Just make a start.
And I think that's it a lot of the time. Like, you know, when people look at things and they look for the why, they look for the reason to get going. Like, just have a conversation with any friends, family members that are maybe the generation older than you.
Yeah.
And just ask them how much they paid for their house.
Yeah.
And then get on Rightmove. And a lot of the time, if that doesn't inspire you to say, you know what, let me maybe take the step.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what we'll see. Bought in Luton.
Yeah.
You know, you've now managing 2 properties whilst working, you know. Did you at any point start to feel like you were being spread too thinly? Like, how did you delegate time?
No, I would say we kind of gave it our all. I mean, we had weekends at the property where we would take the kids with us and they would do the gardening that was required to be done. You know, some would be painting the fence. We kind of just gave everything. We would turn up and do everything ourselves, 9 to 5 in the office, and then weekends.
Yeah, I think we're very much a tag team, and that's why we're both here today. You know, when one can do something, somebody else is busy doing something else, and so on. We're fortunate in that in my job, I work shift work, so I've always got part of the day or part of the week free, and Yvonne is able to choose her hours now. So yeah, just between us, although it's not easy, especially in the early days, between us, we just found a way to make it work, really.
That's good. And it's a really good segue on to my next question, which hopefully the chairs remain as closely together. But working with your spouse.
Yes.
Yvonne, I'm going to ask you this first.
Oh, gosh.
Give me some pros and cons.
Okay, I will go for cons first.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by the PBK community. Now, if you're serious about starting or scaling your property portfolio, but you're feeling stuck or feeling like you're running in circles, trust me, I've been there. But listen, you don't have to go it alone. That's why I put together the PBK community, a space where you get real support, build real connections, and yield real results. Now, we're talking direct access to my power team like lawyers, brokers, architects, and so much more. Bi-weekly Zoom calls with industry pros and template contracts and bespoke tools to make sure you're not wasting time on the wrong moves. And exclusive property deals sourced specifically for members' needs. No fluff, no gimmicks, just support and resources you actually need to level up your property game. This isn't another networking group. It's an elite membership designed for property entrepreneurs who want to be on the inside. We're talking proven systems to streamline your operations, expert-led training to help you work smarter and faster, and a community of like-minded investors. So if you're tired of trying to do it all on your own and you're ready to start implementing the right systems right now, let's book a call with me and my team to chat about how we can make it happen. The link will be in the bio. Now back to the video.
And I'm not sure if this is a con actually. Derek will work himself to the ground. He doesn't know where to stop. He's relentless. And some people might be like, wow, that's an incredible attribute to have. That just means that everything else falls away. He doesn't quite get into family life. I have to constantly be forcing him to find balance. So I suppose that it can be a con, but maybe it's a pro for him as well.
Because I guess it's like in that side of things, you've got 2 hats on. You've got from a business perspective, this is amazing.
Yes.
From a life perspective and life balance, you're looking at it like, and you're actually the business partner in the business, but you're also the partner in the relationship. Well, right? So now
it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's but I have we both, the things that we're both good at, we're quite good, really good at them. So I have a way of, I'm very patient. It would take as long as it takes for me to make sure that he's getting that balance and constantly reminding him that, you know, we've got 3 kids. They're not going to care what we leave for them later on down the line. They're going to care that you are in around. So just finding that balance. And often when he gets there, like book a family breakaway and he's like, oh my God, that was really nice. I didn't realize how much I needed it. And I was like, it took me 6 months to literally force you to agree
take a break
take a break. So it's hard, but I think when you can get it working like we have, it's incredible. I'm like, it's a little bit sad, but he is my best friend.
Nice. Yeah, just for a bit of context though, so we met at school.
Oh God.
We've been married 22 years now.
We've
got adult kids Yeah, I know
adult-ish.
she doesn't look old enough to have
Oh,
adult
great.
kids. But yeah, Yvonne is my life partner.
Yeah.
And when you're doing, I think when you're doing any business, but certainly with property, it's lonely at times.
Sure.
So it's nice to have someone with you doing it. And I think in any business that you do, your partner needs to be on board with what you're doing, because business is all consuming.
Do you feel like you have defined roles within the business, or do you feel like you both do bits of everything?
We probably do bits of everything. I think I'm
it
sort
shifts.
of the sort of business sort of strategic mind. Dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure everything's all in order. But I come
quite
to Yvonne.
creative.
Yeah, Yvonne's more creative, so
Yeah.
you do sort of the interior design, this sort of stuff.
I mean, I can walk in, like we looked at a lot of properties before we bought any of the ones that we got. I can walk in and like, no, we're not getting this. I often can't explain why, but I'm just like, I'm sorry, I don't feel it. We're not getting it. I know it sounds really silly. And then, I mean, the current one that and I'm jumping the gun a bit, but it was literally walking, that's it. We're taking it. But we're not only just taking it, we're going to take that too, which we hadn't planned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very much the numbers and the spreadsheet guy. Like, this makes sense on paper,
For sure.
and she's more, no,
I can
this is
see-
going to work.
yeah.
So
Someone's
you got
going to
vision.
buy this.
Yeah,
and
I
this
can
sort of
I
thing.
can see it. Derek is just one step at a time and get it done perfectly.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's fine.
So
but
you're kind
I
of
can
more
see.
the micro side, you're the macro side, and
Yeah.
kind of blends. It's interesting. The reason I asked the question is I often talk to people about how they choose business partners, and a lot of people choose business partners as friends, and I'm like, why did you do that?
know.
You didn't even need a business partner. You wanted somebody to hold your hand.
Yeah.
So I'm always interested to understand like how the dynamics work in business, but it's amazing to see that obviously it's working very successfully for the Hotkey property team.
Yeah, I think business and personal partnerships are pretty similar
And
in
life.
that I very much believe in the rule of complementary opposites. So what I'm weak in, she's better at. What she's weak in, I'm better at, and we find a way to sort of make it work, both with business and personally. And we've found out how we can disagree on things, but we've found out how to disagree.
By the way, for those of you who like can read body language, that was an interesting laugh. Just rewind it back a little bit and watch that one. But look, no, I see it, and I see it works. It works like, in terms of the portfolio that you've built, the fact that the time frame that it's lasted for, the progression that we've seen over the years. Look, we're going to go into kind of what you've done in the middle ground, outside of buying properties. But I really want to take a step forward, because when you first approached me, I think you said, look, can I book a call? And I said, yeah. He was like, can I do it in person? I was like, not really. He was like, no, can I do it in person? I was like, you don't ask, you don't get. Go ahead, yeah, fine. And obviously you met and you showed me the scheme. And I think, I just like to hear more about how you found that project, what it looks like now, and talk me through some of the processes that you've had to implement to kind of get it, I guess, to this stage.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about how we found it?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll go for it. So it was over 18 months we were looking?
Yeah.
Initially, we were looking for something that maybe we can turn it into 4, 5, 6 and 1-bed flats. It was looking like really dry. We went up to Milton Keynes to meet an agent to see a property. It was all going well till we kind of realized that we were not going to be able to do what we wanted to do.
To make the numbers work.
To make the
etc.,
numbers work. And it was really disappointed, because it's just like we thought that was it. We'd been working with that agent for a while. So look, there's a property that's coming on the market maybe in a few weeks. It's just around the corner. It's not on yet. Would you like to see it? And we're like, oh, okay, eye roll. We went over, and as we walked in, it was incredible. It was like, it's a really old building. It had all this kind of old features with it. But we quickly realized that it shared like a common area with a neighboring property. And we worked out that if we were to just buy this, we're going to have issues going forward in the future. So we said to him, well, what about this one? And he's like, funny enough, that's also coming on the market very soon. We, at that time, didn't know how we were going to fund it, because we went out to go and look for one that we can like turn into 5 flats. So we want to buy both. And that was just me saying, that's it, Derek, we're buying both. I don't know how we were going to do it. it was kind of his job to work that out. But I knew that with both of them, we had something kind of good in the making. And fast forward, another 2 years, and we've got it. We've had it for a year now.
Yeah. So it wasn't easy buying both. Somehow we scraped together the funds, got the deal over the line. It was a very difficult purchase.
Oh my God, yes.
I
think that's a different episode.
We could do a whole episode on that ourselves. But we just had issues with our solicitor. It's a big, well-known firm, and it just felt like the solicitor didn't want us to buy it, didn't it?
Well, it felt like they were working for someone else and not us, and we were paying his invoices that he kept sending. We would take like one step forward and literally 10 back, and that's not an exaggeration. He wasn't working for us. He was finding all the things that just
all the reasons not to buy it. Yeah.
And it is like, obviously, solicitors' roles are like, if we look at like a football team, like they're your goalkeeper, they're your last line of defense to protect you from stuff. But also at the same time, if you use that same analogy, they can't just sit on the ball.
Yes.
They need to distribute, they need to get the game going. So I think I'd advised you on a solicitor.
You did. We substituted our solicitors, to stick with your footballing analogy. And we came to you and said, look, Kazy, we're banging our head against the wall with our solicitor. Can you recommend anyone? And then you came up trumps.
It was amazing.
And then our solicitor that we got in the end did what we needed to do to get the deal over the line
very quickly. It was like, I mean, I can't even find the words. It was how can this move so quickly when for months we haven't moved at all?
Look, it's experience, and that's where you know, marketing's great. Like what people say they do and how they look online and all these things are great, but realistically, like one of the things, and that's why we built like the PBK community, is like having access to a tried and tested team of people, whether it's architects, solicitors, structural engineers, lenders, brokers, all of the people that, you know, they would fit into that like dream team 11-a-side team to allow you to get moving with confidence. Because one thing I always say is like property is not different from any other business, but mistakes are expensive. And so you want to have confidence that you can't do everything, but when you employ somebody, obviously there's oversight, but they can get the job done.
And they know what they're doing.
Exactly.
I mean, it's true what they say. They say your network is your net worth. That's such a true statement. You know, you in property you need a good team, and you're only as good as your team. So you know, it's really important.
So you saw this building. Obviously, initially you're looking for 6 flats. You've then actually seen 2 buildings next to each other. You mentioned I think they had some nice features.
Absolutely.
Are you going to tell me they were listed buildings now?
No.
Okay,
this is what was so shocking. Good. And I think at the time we panicked as well, like, oh my God, we have to really hurry up and buy this because we can't believe it's not listed. So the
buildings have a really interesting history. So one of them is it was most recently a bathroom warehouse. Before that was a Barclays bank. It's got a basement. Which we've gone we've gone looking for the bank vault and the money, but we haven't found anything. But originally it was built in 1880. And it was the village town hall.
Okay,
so
we're talking basically 150 years old.
So it's a really substantial, nice looking building, and lots of history, and that's why we've sort of calling our project Town Hall Residential, because we're turning a town hall into nice residential apartments.
Amazing. So where are you? Have you got planning now? Where are you in the planning process? Because that's really, we talk about good solicitors to get it over the line, good broker or lender to actually get you the money to allow you to get it over the line. Your next step then with a development project is really going to be your key professionals, your architects, planning consultants, etc.
So we're delighted to say that we have recently been granted planning permission for phase 1, which is our first 17 units. That's been a journey as well.
That was a journey.
The planning process, it's not as slick and as quick as it should be, and you need patience.
That's definitely quite an understatement. Talk to me about some of the pitfalls or issues you had during planning that maybe people that are aspiring to get to where you are wouldn't be privy to.
So we took the permitted development planning route. That is the most straightforward way, because it is literally, it's a tick box tick box exercise. Get my words out.
Do you need some water?
Yeah, okay. And as long as your site meet the criteria, then it should go through without any issues. It's meant to go through in a 2-month statutory time frame, but the reality is nobody's holding the planning department to that. If they take longer, it takes longer. Funnily enough, actually, if they're taking too long, the appeal process almost is initially you need to go to them and put in another application
To say they're taking
to
too
say
long.
you're taking too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's recourse in these places where, particularly under Class MA, technically, like if they take a certain amount of time,
Yes.
it's deemed as granted. However,
Yeah.
it's
You still need
who
the
do you go
paperwork.
to for
Yeah.
that consent? Because
Yeah.
like, well, it's deemed,
Yeah.
but there's still nobody to sign this off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The bank aren't happy with just
Deemed,
you've got it
yeah.
automatically. You need the piece of paper.
And funny enough, that's what happened to us.
Yeah,
They
okay.
took so long.
Yeah.
They missed their own deadlines.
Yeah. But we got it in the end.
We did.
That's the main thing.
And in terms of, did you deviate from the initial plans? Because for phase 1,
Yes.
was it always 17 units? Was it bigger? Was it smaller? What does it look like?
It started off smaller.
Yeah.
But the smaller scheme didn't quite work with the numbers. So what we actually did with the help of a planning consultant was that we put in a full planning application to add in some extra doors and windows to the building as it was, as a commercial property. And with permission for that, we've then gone for a further permitted development application with better numbers. And it's those numbers that then make the scheme work.
And with it being so over the 9 units, was there any affordable housing element of it, or?
Yeah, no, there isn't, because that doesn't apply to PD, permitted development. So that's another good reason to stick within PD if you can. Yeah.
And I guess, because of that, you haven't also got the different like percentage requirements for
To
X
get
number
back,
of
yeah.
3 beds, X number of 2 beds,
Yeah.
X number of 1 beds. And that's, I guess, like, why commercial to residential conversions and PD stuff has become very popular.
Yeah.
Purely because of that.
Yeah.
What what's next for you? Because obviously you've got this now, that's your phase 1.
Yeah.
Are you back into planning? Are you looking to start the build? Where are you with the project overall?
Yeah, so we're looking to start the build fairly soon. We're doing tendering at the moment to contractors. We're just sorting out the build finance, but also we're also looking to strengthen our professional team as well. We're very much looking to work with other professionals, investors, can help us with this phase and also the following phase.
And with your drawings, have you got like complete building control packages now? You're all done and
Yeah, it's
dusted?
pretty much all there, ready to go through building control. So yeah, it's pretty much good to go.
I think this is it. Like, we've spoken about this on previous episodes, but what a lot of people find is that the larger they go, actually, it can sometimes, in a convoluted way, almost become more straightforward because you can
scale it
afford to have a bigger build team, a project manager, a site manager, like, somebody who's doing all of your construction management plans, who's dealing all your signing off your pre-commencement conditions,
Yeah.
dealing with your new build warranties and your setup and liaising with building control. Whereas if you're refurbishing that flat in Luton,
Yeah.
you don't have the luxury of a QS.
Yeah.
Stru-
We
like,
did that ourselves.
everything. You are your own QS. You are your own interior architect. You are
Yeah.
your
And some
own
little kids doing some
architect
work.
for a lot of stuff. Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
so that's really interesting. What would you say in terms of scaling up is probably one of the biggest learning curves you've had from preparing to do a bigger project?
I think it's just realizing that because we've always worked just us, we've been able to meet our own deadlines, but realizing that every kind of team needs their own deadlines. And then once they have it, then you need to collaborate with everyone else on. So that's been a big learning curve. But we will have a deadline that we know we need to meet, and we think we've built in enough contingencies, but then everybody else's information needs to be collated. So that's been a little, I wouldn't say a shock, but that's just been a bit like, what do you mean you're not ready?
Yeah. It is. It is very much so. You are the conductor of the orchestra trying to make
Yeah, for
everything
me,
sound
it's about handing over the reins.
Oh, yeah,
and,
he's not very
and
good at
letting
that.
my professionals get on with what they need to do. We've sort of learned through managing our own property portfolio. We've had over 70 tenants through our portfolio. That's a lot of work, and we've realised that if we want to get to that next level of sort of landlords and developers. And going back to what I read in the book in the beginning, is that you don't want to be giving yourself another full-time job. It is about having that passive income. So in this bigger development, I don't have a choice. There's no way I'm going to be doing the painting, managing the tenants, and all that sort of stuff. I've got to hand it over to a professional team, and so that's the big thing that I've learned that I needed to do, and that's what they're getting on with now for us.
No. In terms of structuring the deal, because obviously you've managed to get the funds initially to acquire the property. You've now got planning, which means, your asset value has increased. How are you going to fund, the builds going forward?
So we're going to be moving from a purchase bridge onto a development bridge. And what they do with that, they look at your scheme, they look at your planning, they look at your numbers. And as long as everything ties up, then they fund 100% of the development costs. And that's based on your GDV that you're getting at the end. So it's really important to sort of buy right, make sure you've got a good scheme. And the thing that sort of really attracted us to this site is the further potential. So there's that initial 17 units, then it's got a large warehouse at the back, which under full planning, we're hoping we can maybe knock down, put an apartment block with parking, maybe get up to another 18 units there. So there's sort of plenty of potential within the site, which will hopefully mean that we've got no issues moving forward with getting everything together for the build.
For sure. And then when you look at what you're planning to do in terms of exit strategy, what's your exit for this project?
That's a good question.
It is.
Yeah.
It's changed a bit throughout kind of the time we've had this property, but I think we've settled on.
So long.
It
long
sounds
term,
like it's still to be confirmed.
to
If
be
I'm
confirmed,
reading
yeah.
between the lines.
So long term, we hold our properties because we're looking for that sort of residual monthly income to sort of replace our day jobs. So we would love to hold all of our flats, but you also have to look at the cash flow as well, and you have to make sure that your lenders and investors are paid back. So it might be the case that we do a bit of selling and a bit of renting and refinancing.
I think for phase one, we're definitely looking at selling for phase one. And as we move on, because there's so much more potential down the line, phase one is probably going to be selling. We might look at retaining later on down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's always trying to find that balance. And I think in business as a whole, you need to be dynamic. You need to be able to move based on market requirements.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time when people are like, right, I'm flipping this, right, I'm refinancing this, I'm like, why? Why don't you see what happens? Why don't you get there and be like, okay, what does the market tell you to do?
So those two markets often work in reverse. So when people are struggling to buy, that automatically means they're renting, and that pushes up the rental prices. And then the same as the other way around. When people can buy because money is cheap and people can borrow, there's less people renting. So you do need to sort of move with the market.
It just depends on where we are, because there's more macro market forces that, there may be a reintroduction of some similar scheme like Help to Buy. And if Help to Buy comes back and you're within the right parameters, all of a sudden you're getting a 20% uplift on the sales price. So it's almost like it's a no-brainer to sell at that point of time.
Yeah.
But likewise, they're also talking about there being mortgage wars over the next 12 months where they're likely to see 2 to 3 drops in rates, and rates become a lot more competitive. So again, it may be a case if you look at it and be like, well, if we can secure really good rates and potentially something like maybe a social housing contract for the entire unit, and now, for example, the scheme cash flows amazingly, then you're like, well, it makes sense to keep it.
To sell, yeah.
But all of these things are you really have to be in a place where you say, look, let me analyze the market for where it is.
Yeah.
Because the reality is where we are now,
Completely.
a 17 unit project, it's probably going to be an 18-month build to whether it's to asset stabilization or exit. At that point in time,
things would have changed.
I mean, we got Trump in the White House right
now.
It literally changes on a daily basis.
That actually happened again.
You got to remember, you got Trump in the White House. All we need is Boris Johnson to come back, back in business. Turmoil 101.
Oh God.
Yeah. So we'll see where we're at when we complete the units. Yeah.
We're learning so much as we're going on as well. So we see where we are. Yeah. I think for us now, we want to see through.
Yeah.
It's been a journey,
and I think that's the important. Has there ever been a point where you've looked at it and you've got planning and you said, you know what, this is our number. If somebody came and offered us this amount, we would just say, look, let's make the money.
No. For me, because of
Nope. So now, before you even think about it, I'm answering this one.
We did get an offer for the warehouse. The agent did come back to us, the one that helped us buy, and we did get an offer for the warehouse, and it was a straight no. You know, it's the icing on the cake, so to say. So no to the warehouse, because of. Remember when I said for me, it's like I see the vision. And because of the vision I've seen for the build, it's just like, no, we this is for us to complete, however hard and however long it might take.
No, I'm with you, by the way.
This is for us to complete.
A lot of the time, like I do stuff and I get planning and I'm like, there's like, you know, for argument's sake, you buy a house and there might be a planning uplift of 200,000. I'm like, I could walk away without doing a single thing and make the 200,000, or I could do all the works and have all the stress with the builders, the lenders, and you can double and then sometimes a lot more in terms of your return.
Yeah. I just feel like I see the story with it being town hall residential. I've already been scouring the internet on the history of the town, already started downloading pictures. I have a real, I want it to be back to the community. I want, you know, once upon a time, this building was the center of the community, and I would like to see it back like that again. And I feel like we've got to make that happen.
Yeah.
Can't see us selling on to someone that just comes to...
Yeah. And it depends on your long-term goals as well. So, you know, it depends if you want to keep needing to find new projects or if you think that this is the project sort of that delivers your sort of end goal, which was is our pension, really. That's the way we see it.
That's what he's saying now.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's looking elsewhere already.
Yeah, because I'm sure. Cause the other thing is as well, doing a project like this, what it does is it puts you on the map. So now, for example, that's now your portfolio. So say there's another landowner, he maybe not want to sell, but maybe now he wants to JV with Hotkey Properties. He's like, well, I've seen how you've taken that asset and increased the value exponentially. Actually, now how about I've got the asset, you bring the expertise. So a lot of the time, the value isn't actually in the uplift from that particular deal. It's because of the proof of concept and exposure that you can get from delivering something at a high standard.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we just feel there's something that we've been building up to over the years. So, you know, we've done simple buy-to-lets, we've done HMOs, and I sort of see this project as having almost the best of both worlds. And what I mean by that is that what I like about buy-to-lets is that the management is quite hands-off. People stay in buy-to-lets quite long, and you know, our flat in Luton, I barely ever need to go and see it. We've got a really good couple in there at the moment, and they're happy as Larry. HMOs are a little bit more work in terms of the tenant turnover, all that sort of thing, but the returns are better because you're sweating the asset.
Our previous guest called HMOs, what was it? High maintenance operations.
Yeah, that's not too far wrong.
It's
to
not
be
too
fair,
far. We've called them many things. I've called them my children. Literally, it was like being mum to some tenants.
This person drank my milk. This person like slams the door when they leave at night. This person washed their clothes too late.
And it's crazy. It's like you're in the house with the person, have a conversation. Why are you calling me?
Because your mum.
I don't even live there.
No, your mum.
But that's what it was. We had children.
Yeah.
And it's just like 3's enough. We don't need anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why I think like creating, because if you were British Gas, people don't call up to complain. Whereas like, you know, whereas if you call your landlord or your local plumber about something, you want to explain the whole story and X, Y, or Z. Whereas so you kind of have to put your best foot forward and create a standard of communication, I think.
You're 100% right. And in the early days, you know, our brand is that we look after our tenants. We care. We would only put people in homes that we'll be happy to put our own children in, for example. So we care. But the flip side of that is that tenants can take that too far, and we used to get, you know, calls all the time. We're talking this morning. You know, our kids knew the names of one of our tenants. He calls us so much. I'm not going to out him.
They used to stress them.
But it was too much. And you exactly what you said. You have to set the standard for how you're going to communicate professionally with your tenants. So
definitely.
The simple answer is I never answer the phone now. Yeah. I only need to know about things which are urgent. Everything else you can put in a text message. and I'll get back to you in a reasonable amount of time. If something's urgent, send me a picture of, the water leaking through the ceiling. I'll give you a call back straight away. But it is just setting out that sort of a professional boundary between you and your tenants, so that you sort of you know where you stand on both sides. So yeah, I think that's important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
For the 17 flats, what do you project the GDV at, and has that moved from the point of offering?
No, it hasn't moved too much. We're looking at around about 3.2, 3.2 million for the GDV for the 17 flats. The market's been sort of quite flat over the last
It's
few
changed a
years.
bit.
Stagnant-ish.
Yeah.
let's say.
I'm hoping it will switch the other way by the time we're done.
But long run, property prices generally only go in one direction. Yeah.
And with these phase 2, similar sorts of values, subject to planning.
Yeah.
In your entire property journey, what is, I think I might know the answers to this already, but which is like your most memorable property that you've purchased?
Oh. It depends what we mean by good memorable.
Memorable.
Yeah.
I left it subjective on purpose.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what my
you
answer
go.
is. Yeah? My favourite property is that 1-bed flat in Luton, believe it or not. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because that one was our sort of first real foray into being property investors. And that one's done really well. So that one's doubled in value. We've refinanced. We've taken out all the money that we've put into it. So it's a bit like buying a flat for free. I think they call that a unicorn.
Yeah.
It's so rare. So yeah, that one, that's my favourite one at the moment.
I don't know if I have a favorite, but now that you say that one,
Yeah.
I think it's my favorite because of the learning opportunities that particular flat offered us and continue to offer us. You know, we have learned so much in terms of leasehold. And so, I mean, we've only ever had one eviction, and that was in that property.
Yeah. So it's not plain sailing, is it?
It hasn't been plain
my
sailing,
gosh.
but obviously we've come up on top.
Yeah.
Both all the time. But it's just like, that's what I think I like about it. It's been a little test ground that is proven quite fruitful.
Yeah.
And because it's just that one, we've managed to learn so much, and it's probably why we're able to go for a bigger HMO and now where we are now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. It was all. It is all
that's
about.
my favorite too.
Yeah. It is all about sort of taking the lessons that you learn and applying them and then scaling up. Yeah.
I think if I was to listen to this podcast back, or if they were to turn it into a drinking game, I think if you use the word learning, there'd be a lot of drunk people. It's like, why do you think that? Is it so important for you to always be learning realistically?
Success doesn't happen overnight.
No.
You've had many fantastic guests, sitting in these chairs, and they're doing big schemes and big numbers, but it just doesn't happen overnight. Everyone has to go through the trials and tribulations in order to get to where they're going. And that's why, like we were saying at the beginning, the success isn't actually in the success. The success is in the journey, what you've had to overcome along the way. And to be honest, if you're sitting here breathing, standing, healthy, then you've actually overcome all the challenges that have come your way. And that's something to be really proud of. Yeah.
I think it's definitely progress over perfection.
Yeah. I like that.
There are many ways we could say, oh my God, I wish I did it that way. But we've moved forward, even though we didn't do it perfectly. We've moved forward. So definitely progress.
Yeah. I think you need to have a mindset of turning problems and failure. You need to have a mindset of turning that around. Failure is only failure if you stop when you have a problem.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to just back up a couple steps, pivot, and go again, then you can overcome whatever's put in your way. So yeah, and that is the property journey. Really, it really is.
Considering you've already got an active 7-figure portfolio, you've got 3.2 million, basically in construction, a potential another 3 million plus in the pipeline. Why do you still want to come on the podcast?
I'll let him answer that.
I'm going to say there might be a difference of opinion on this one.
I've been following your podcast a while. When
He was stalking you through me for a very long time.
back when it was Ask Someone Else.
Yeah, we was talking about that. That was Because someone asked like, why did you start the podcast? And I was like, well, I was
Yeah.
doing this like Instagram live, and I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this every week, like all the time. Like I can never do anything on a Sunday. Like, so I was like, all right, cool. Gonna turn it into an actual podcast, which I enjoy now. It's like my therapy.
Yeah, and you've gone past 100 guests.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Amazing.
major congrats
Well
to that.
done.
But yeah, I've watched so many of the episodes and been inspired by the people that have come on. And, I thought to myself, I could never be in front of the camera. I could never be talking about the stuff that I've done. It's too intimidating. And then I realized, something, those people inspired me to sort of get to where I've got to. And I think we've got an interesting story to tell.
No, for
So
sure.
yeah, I thought we'll come on and just share the reality of life
It's not all bits and glamours.
as landlords, as parents, as working a full-time job alongside what you're doing, just sharing the reality of that, and just sharing with people that you can really achieve your goals in property long term if you stick at it.
No,
What
for
is it
sure.
that you called our journey? Get rich slow.
Yeah.
I often do the only fools and horses, like when I'm like, I might be talking to my dad or something, and I'll be like, don't worry, Rodney, next year we'll be millionaires. Which I always enjoy that. I like that growing up, and I think it's a good sentiment. Just remind you that it doesn't matter where you are. You can be happy where you are, but it's not a bad thing to be aspirational. Look, while we've got you here, I think call to actions are important. Closed mouths don't get fed. So first question for you is, what is one thing in your business, in life, whether you currently need? It could be a good painter. It could be, anything that you think, what, this is somewhere we might need this.
Yeah. So yeah, we're tendering to contractors at the moment. So if you're a contractor that thinks you can help with our build, we'd very much like to hear from you. And we're also raising finance for the build. So if you're an investor that wants to invest in an up and coming project and looking for a healthy return, then yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
It's good stuff. And if people want to connect with you, where can they find you? How can they get in touch?
Okay, so we are on Instagram and YouTube at Hotkey Property, and also I'm on YouTube. On LinkedIn, Derek Brown Hotkey Property.
Amazing. Well, I really appreciate having you on. I'm sure all the viewers do. That has been another episode of the PBK podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you like this video. If you've got any questions for myself or my guest, then let us know in the comment section. And as always, make sure you subscribe so we can get bigger, better guests every week to improve your property knowledge. Peace.